Welcome to Agents Growth Academy. I'm your host, Jim Schubert. Class is now in session. Are you ready to grow big or go home? Let's do it. Folks, I am super excited today to welcome Brent Kelly, who is a husband, a father of 5. That's a lot of kids. President of the Sitkins Group based in Fort Myers, Florida. Brent's mission is to help agencies gain clarity, build consistency, and make a commitment to become their best version possible. I love that. He was named one of the top 12 young agents in the country in 2012 and was certified as a John Maxwell leadership coach in 2016. Welcome to the show, Big Brent.
Hey, Jim, it is my pleasure to be with you. Great to talk with you today.
Awesome, man. I'm super stoked. So if you could just kind of in like 60 seconds or so, kind of tell us how you got here, not in your car, just like, how'd you get here?
You said 60 minutes or 60 seconds?
Sure.
No, I'll do my best. 60 seconds. Spent like many, if not almost all people in the insurance world, Jim, I spent every waking moment as a child thinking about my days forthcoming as an insurance professional. No, I had no inclination of doing it. I graduated college. I began working for an agency. I did production, worked for one agency about 4.5 years, and then moved back closer to my hometown with my wife and grandparents around and worked there for about 10-ish years or so. And then from there, I made a really big decision that although I love the industry, I saw myself doing something different within the industry. And so I started my own company, consulting and speaking and training. And quite honestly, Jim, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was just going to do something. So I did that for a few years and then connected to Roger Sitkins. And some people will know that name in the industry. He's been around for 40 years with the Sitkins Group and impacted a lot of agencies. And so had an opportunity to be mentored and be part of Sitkins and obviously equip myself. And so started there in 2017. And here I am today. Did I make 60 seconds?
Man, that was awesome. Just under the wire. I wasn't even looking at the clock, but that was pretty good. That's awesome. Actually, I remember something that we learned. Gosh, I think I want to say it was Hanover because we had lunch with our the regional president of Hanover today, Jerome Guiney, and we were reminding him that we had, I think y'all Sitkins must have presented something, or maybe he was talking about something that they had learned from Sitkins training that said everything that you do in your interview process is if there is ever one little hiccup, just pass, because that's the universe telling you that something's not right. And I have to tell you, I mean, that came up even yesterday. I don't, maybe y'all still don't teach, maybe y'all don't teach that anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's like bad press for y'all, but
no. Well, I don't want to go ahead, Jim, go ahead.
But no, I was just gonna say it's worked for us. I mean, it has worked for us more often than not where some little hiccup has happened. And it's just like, you know what? No, I mean, somebody sent me the resume a couple of days ago. I emailed them back and said, hey, here's a link to schedule a phone screen. And they emailed me or I got a bounce back and I was like, oh man, I missed the I in it. I was like, no, actually I copy pasted it, but I'm going to give them one more chance. I'll put the I back in Hotmail and it bounced back again. And at that point I was like, you know what? Hey, if you don't care, I don't care. Like if you don't care enough to make sure your email address is correct, then why should I care?
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, I think it's great because obviously you want to make informed, logical decisions on lots of things, but there is that internal warning system called our gut, and it's real. And you know, I on a personal note, you mentioned my wife and 5 kids. I can't tell you how many times that I said, "No, this makes sense. We're going to do this," and my wife would be like, something doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And early on in my marriage, I'd be like, oh, come on, that's silly. And it never worked out. And then I realized I tell her now, like, what do you think? What do you feel? Like I go to her, she's like, I think this is right. I'm like, okay, we're going to do it. So I think there is a lot to intuition and some of those things. So it's a great point you bring up there, Jim.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still useful to go with our gut from time to time. I asked you when we were scheduling the show, if this were a master class, what would it be about? And I love it. You said, own it or leave it, taking personal accountability. Tell me about that. Unpack that for me.
Yeah, so there's, I mean, so many different ways, Jim, I guess, to talk about this. But I mean, I get and we get the pleasure at Citizens to work with so many different agencies and producers, and like success leaves clues, right? There's certain things you see, and there's different areas, but like if people say, "What's the one thing that really jumps out at you?" and I say, "Well, the producers that win, or the agencies that win, the professionals that win, they're all in." Like it's not like we're gonna dip the toe in the water and yeah, we'll give it a shot and we'll see how it goes. It's like this is my thing. I own it.
Yeah.
And if it works or when it works or how it'll work, it's gonna be a team effort and all this, but I'm gonna be behind it. And when it doesn't work and when things happen and things will happen, I'm gonna own that too.
Yeah.
And it's that one we always joke about it. It's the A word called accountability.
Yes.
And let's face it. I mean, it's a I don't know if it's a dying skill or dying attribute, but it's much easier. And I'm sure this has always been the case, but certainly I see a lot of it. It's much easier to point fingers at people than to own it and say, you know what? It's my fault.
Yeah.
Or, if it's a team effort, right? It's the other thing too, as well, you know, I mean, I know I wasn't fully at fault so really it was them. And there's always this thing. And so I believe in we create a lot of acronyms at Sitkins. Roger has so many acronyms, Jen.
I think
It's
we do
funny.
that a lot in the insurance industry anyway.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we're just following the trend, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always talk about is an acronym APR. And that's not annual percentage rate, which most people think about that, right? It's absolute personal responsibility.
Mm.
Like, are you willing to take absolute personal responsibility to your results, to your behaviors, to your attitude? Are you going to own it? And, because to me, it's if you're not going to do that, then just don't play. It's not worth everyone else's time. I've got mentioned with my kiddos. It's funny. You learn a lot of lessons from your kids, right?
Yeah.
And Jim, I'm sure you have as well. In
Yeah.
fact, many of my leadership lessons are not from, a $30 million agency, but from a 3-year-old or a
Right.
13-year-old in
Right.
some cases. But like, I just see it with my kids, and it's so true in business to where, like I'll ask my child to do something or, hey, I need you to get this done. And they don't do it. Go figure. Right. And
Right.
typically what is the answer I get? Well, I didn't feel like it. I forgot, or someone else was supposed to do it. Like that is almost always the effect of it is one of those three. I didn't
Yeah.
feel like it.
Yeah.
Someone else was supposed to do it, or I forgot.
Yeah.
And when I work with agencies and I've inside and the professionals, like when things go awry, I will tell you it's almost always one of those three things.
Yeah.
It's a little more adult version, but it's still
Sure.
the same things.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by own it. Like just own it. Like if you're gonna play the game, own the game. Own that you're in the game and that you take responsibility for the game. And by the way, the game isn't always fair.
No.
It's other things that kids say, right? If you ever played a game with your kid
Oh
and
my
they lose,
gosh.
that's not fair.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that's the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes it isn't fair. But
Right.
how to me is this. It's not that it isn't fair. What is your response going to be?
Yes. That's why I love the word responsibility. It's the ability to choose your response.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
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 I
So
love that.
that's how I see it. I don't know if I answered that question all right or gave you some ideas there,
No,
but that's how I view it.
I love it. And, I wonder if you can speak to, producers in particular who are struggling maybe to get things going, to make things happen. What can they do? Are there habits that they can create, or is there some kind of framework or system that they should be, implementing to hold themselves accountable or have other people hold them accountable?
If I had to get like this is going to be overly simplistic, but it's
Sometimes that's
true.
the best thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we always even joke at Sitkin stuff that we teach, like, well, it's simple. It's just not
Yeah.
always easy,
Yeah.
right? And there's
Yeah.
a difference there.
Yeah.
But just understanding, like, here's something that this is producers, but anybody, like,
Sure.
design your week before it starts.
Mm.
And then here's another thing: hold yourself accountable to what you designed.
Yeah. I love that.
Right? Like it sometimes, and by the way, that's a really hard thing. Now, for a number of reasons. Number one is do things actually happen? Yes.
Yeah.
Unexpected stuff, right?
Yeah.
It is going to happen. But what happens is those things happen. And then on top of that, we have no real game plan. And like, for example, Jim, with producers, this is one of our key points at Sitkins, is that most producers are part-time producers trying to win a full-time game. I mean, if you actually analyze, they will spend/invest a very minimal amount of time. By the
Yeah.
way, time is their only diminishing asset
Right.
into everything but the thing they're actually hired for,
Yeah.
which is to produce.
Right.
So, very simplistic answer to that is, for a producer, is if you look at your calendar right now or the next week, is it filled with producer stuff, or is it filled with activity stuff or non stuff or I don't know yet stuff?
Yeah.
Because here's something that I think is true for, I won't say all, but many of us, is that if you have a hole in your calendar, it's probably going to be filled with stuff. And I
Oh
don't mean
yeah.
that in a positive term, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is the most simplistic thing: is design a week in advance and be intentional with your thoughts and planning, and then hold yourself accountable to it. I mean,
Yeah.
there you go.
It,
How's that
it,
for something that you'd never heard before, Jim?
no, I think it's fantastic, and I think I love the concept of designing it, because it implies that you're an artist. You have leeway. You can do it your own way. It doesn't have to be so structured that somebody else says I have to do it this way and management is telling me I have to do this. We're independent agents, right? Like, oh my gosh, are we independent? Like, every personality I know that I have in my agency, I love you all. I love you all, but wow, y'all are all so different, including myself, right? And
Yeah.
I think designing it is such a powerful thing, because you have the leeway to create it the way and with the methods that you choose. But I think what you're getting at is fill it with, especially like if you're talking about producers, fill it with revenue generating activities first. And what we call, like, I don't know if you read, we talk about this book all the time on this podcast, but Traction. Have you read that by Gino Wickman?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the concept. I mean, he takes concepts from a lot of other authors, like Stephen Covey with the concept of rocks, right?
Yep.
I love that, because if you start with the big things that are the most important, fill your time in your calendar with those things. And if you're a producer, especially revenue generating activities, right? So yeah, I mean, you're right. It is so simple, but it's so powerful.
Well, it's one of the things too, Jim, and like in a lot of stuff that we do. I mean, like I said, information is very powerful. I think we talked about this even before we officially started recording. Like it's powerful, but it's obviously, the simple thing is, what are you going to do with it? That's the transformation. And like, my favorite quote on design, as you said, you like that part. Jim Rohn. I don't know if you ever heard any Jim Rohn stuffs, but gosh, he was so good, and he passed away many years ago. But just great stuff. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, "If you don't design your life, there's a good chance someone else will." And guess what they have planned for you? Not much.
I love that.
Right. So it's it's back to the ownership. And, and you're right. Like with producers, hey, here's the good news about being an independent insurance agent producer. I mean, you're independent, like you just said.
Right.
Right. And in fact, I think for independent insurance agencies, one of the greatest benefits is independent. The greatest detriment is that you're independent.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's too many choices, too many things to do, too many options. Right.
Yeah.
And so within that, what hits me too, and I am extremely, if you get to know me better, Jen, extremely independent, quick start nature, idea a second person. That's who I am. Right.
You and I are cut from the same cloth, my friend.
And so I know it. And that's who I am. And I'm just going to say, thank you, God, for this is who I am, better or worse. Right.
Yeah.
But within that, there's limitations. And one of the things that and this is kind of more recent, and I heard this, I forgot where I heard it from, but it's so true. Because when we think, like, independent thinkers don't want to be, fenced in, so to speak.
Right.
But what someone said was that structure equals ultimate freedom. And for me, what that meant was that if I can just get the basic tenets and structure, and this is true with producers, within those guardrails or whatever term you want to use, I can go really fast.
Yeah.
It's be like if you were out in traffic and there was no lines or stop signs, I could do anything I want anytime. But guess what? It's chaotic, right? And you actually can't go very fast, or you might die.
Right.
But once you start to get just a few levels of structure, now I can go really fast. I just have to know, the term that we always talk about, Jim, at Sitkins, it's flexibility without dilution. So, like, let's be flexible, because we're
Yeah.
human beings and we got different
Sure.
personalities, but let's not dilute what the purpose is or the end in mind or the goal we're trying to accomplish. That's where some people get in trouble.
Yeah, and it's that keeping, again, back to Covey, right? Like keeping, beginning with the end in mind.
Right.
I think if if anybody, what producers, service staff, anybody, if you're not beginning with what the outcome ultimately looks like, how are you supposed to know how to get there, right? I mean, you're outside of Chicago. If I was trying to get to you and I had no idea where are you in Bloomington?
Yeah,
Bloomington?
just outside of Bloomington. Yep.
Yeah. Like if I didn't know generally where that is, I'd be driving around in circles here in Alpharetta,
Right.
Georgia, going, "Where's Brent?"
Right. It's that's very true. And I think there's the destination, right, Jim? And
Yep.
then obviously then the other part, which has been around forever, but it's still powerful, is why do you want to go there in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
And I think, a big part that, we work on with producers isn't so much just brain knowledge, but heart knowledge, like
Mm-hmm.
getting to that, right? Because that's what really inspires behavior change. I mean, it's no different. Like I remember like two things. Like I'm just thinking of analogies as you said that. Like after my second daughter was born, I had a time where I really enjoyed going to lunch with the guys, and I stopped working out. And you probably know what happened, right? Like all of a sudden the waistline continued to expand, and I went from I used to be a pretty good athlete to some guy that was like, what am I doing? And you try different things, and like, okay, I want to be like this.
Yeah.
I want to look like that, and I want to perform like that, right? But it wasn't until I'll never forget when and this isn't any detriment to this guy, but I saw a gentleman. I went to my niece's basketball game. I'll never forget this. And there was a
Mm-hmm.
guy that was like 40 some years old who was struggling to go up the bleachers.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me in 10 or 15 years or 20 years if I don't do something. Right. And so
Yeah.
all that goes back to you need some powerful connection of why it matters to you. And then, of
Yeah.
course, where do you want to go? So
Yeah.
those to me need to be aligned for sure.
Yeah. I love it. Brent, if agents or agency owners are listening to this and they're thinking, what could Brent and Sitkins do for me? I mean, can you walk us through real briefly? Like, what is the outcome? What are y'all, or what does the journey look like kind of?
Yeah. And thanks for asking that, Jim. I mean, we have done a lot of different things. And of course, I can speak for myself from 2017, but Roger for a long period of time and
Yeah.
learn a lot along the way. And obviously, COVID, like everyone else, made us pivot, right, in different things that we were doing. And like a lot of agencies, you come on the other side and go, you know what? Not only did we pivot, we did pretty well. Things we do much higher level in different ways.
Yeah.
So what we do overall, I mean, in a very simplistic way, and this is on my tagline for my podcast, is we want to help agencies, as you mentioned earlier, clarity, consistency, commitment to be their best version possible. Well, why should I care? Well, hopefully they want organic sales growth. Hopefully they want better culture in their agency, right? All those kind of things that people want from the outcome. But three areas that we really focus on with agencies, and we really believe in working with the agency holistically. And
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the first thing, Jim, is that like for us, what we do is we help agencies begin to communicate in a similar language, in a similar culture. And it's
Mm-hmm.
still the agency's culture. It's your culture, right? It's the
Yeah.
agency's culture. But we want to give you tools and resources because I tell you what we find so often is that sometimes sales and service, for example, don't get along so well.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do, but there's still some animosity, or we're not being as proactive together.
Yeah.
And as we talk about, are they on this? Do they have the same goal with different roles?
Yeah.
Or are they just doing whatever, right? So number one, we want to get the team to communicate holistically. Number two is give you all process. Give agencies a process to say, hey, listen, is there a roadmap we can run? You're going to run your race. We want to be your guide. We want to help you
Yeah.
get there faster, compress time, accelerate results. And the last thing is put you around other agency leaders that are committed to growth.
Mm.
So be around other high-level achievers and thinkers and professionals, because as you know, if you spent too much time just watching the news or being by yourself or whatever it is, it can get pretty ugly, right? So
Oh
we
yeah.
want, I always believe this, and you probably have heard this before. If you're the smartest person in the room, it's probably time to find a new room. So,
Yeah.
so we want to continue to unlock the collective genius. So we put together all that where we've got a core training program that every member of every agency can be part of. Then we walk you through a process of something we call deep dives. So to help agencies say, what's the one thing we're going to accomplish in the next 90 days? Because I think one of the biggest things that happens to agencies and professionals is they try to do too many things.
Oh yeah.
And so to me, it's, hey, let's not do more things. Let's do the right things better.
Yeah.
right? So that's part of the process we walk through, and then just continue interaction. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's higher organic growth rate, it's better culture, right? It's more profitability. And hopefully, the biggest thing, I guess, if I could say one thing that we help agencies do, and at least my passion and mission is to help agencies and agency leaders have greater freedom,
Yeah.
right? That's really what we
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah. That's what we all want, I think. Some of what you were speaking to a second ago, I was listening to a podcast earlier today that you did back in August, or that was released in August. And I wrote down what you said because I thought it was super cool when you were talking about, becoming the best version. I talk about that a lot too. It's so funny. I was like, oh my gosh, like we're talking about the same thing. I went to Boston College, and their motto is ever to excel. You're always trying to do better. One of our core values in our agency that we uncovered when we did an exercise to figure that out, what was inherent in our people. One of them was grow or die, right? Becoming constantly trying to be better. I love what you said here. And tell me if I get this right. You said essentially that a lot of people's worst nightmare is meeting the version of yourself that you could have been at the end of your life. And I was like, oh man, that put chills down my spine. Did I get that right?
Yeah. I mean, how I say it, and I honestly don't remember who and where I heard that from, and I should probably give proper credibility and accreditation to whoever said it. It's like a lot of things at some point. But by the way, before I get to it, it's always funny. I went to a John Maxwell training, and John Maxwell has written like 100 books. He's like, here's how this goes. The first time you say it, you say, Jim Schubert said. The second time you say, it's been said. After you say it 30 times, you say, I say. Right? So how those things happen. It was so funny. But
I love
it. That definition that you talked about, it is powerful. In fact, when I heard it, it gave me chills. And the idea was the definition of hell on earth.
Yeah.
And the definition of hell on earth is that when you get to your final day, you meet the person that you could have become.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And so it just, as you alluded to, it's just a powerful thought, and scary. And hopefully, with it isn't, the goal isn't to scare people and go, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But to say, listen, what am I doing every single day to advance forward so I don't have to face that fear, right? At least not to the level I want to.
Yeah. Well, and it fits so perfectly with your theme here today about personal accountability, or as you said, absolute personal responsibility. That's what it all boils down to, because if you're committed to that, if you're focused on that, then when you get to the end of your life, you should be looking in the mirror. You should be looking in the mirror instead of looking at the person that you could have been, because you would have achieved all those things. Yeah. Well, we're getting
something Roger said on that, as you said that, Jim, it just struck me. And he said this on some recent things you've done. He said, you have two choices. You can live a life of regrets. And I should have tried that. I wish I would have done that. I could have, should have, would have, right?
Yeah.
Or you could find the things that work and do regrets, right? Those little things. It says you got regrets or you got regrets, and you pick every single day which ones you're going to do. And I'm like, And I find myself doing that, right? Because in so many cases, it's easy to go, oh, well, it's not a big deal. And we invented a character in some of our trainings and programs and coaching called Dr. Yabbit, evil Dr. Yabbit. and he always lives on your shoulder. And so you tell yourself, I can do this, or I'm going to start this, or, this is going to be the next thing, or whatever it is, right? He looks and goes, yeah, but you don't really need to do that. Yeah, but I think we all have those, and you just have to read. Wait, who's this evil doctor trying to tell me this stuff that no one else said it? It's in my own head. It's my own head trash.
Yeah. I love it. All right, you ready for the rapid fire round?
I don't know. I hope so.
It's not going to be as painful as you think. One piece of technology or software that either you can't live without, or you think that producers or really any agents shouldn't live without.
Okay. As you ask that, people are going to go, are you kidding me? Because there's so many things I use, the technology and all that. I love technology. It's a calendar. It's not technology because you can handwrite it, but the one I will tell you, the calendar I have, just like I tell producers, it's color coded. If
Yeah.
it's in green, it's money generating. If it's red, it's stuff I have to do. And I tell you what,
Oh.
that one visual is
Ooh.
so powerful.
Wow. I like that. Okay. Yeah. I mean, dude, that's pretty darn cool. I color code my calendar, but it looks like something that a 3-year-old would have, opened a box of crayons and just gone to town with. But I like the Christmas color theme idea, where where my wife is currently upstairs decorating for Christmas as we speak, and we're recording this a couple of days before Thanksgiving, so don't judge us.
Hey, we're starting to, Jim.
Yeah. I think everybody's kind of like, I need joy in my life right
Yeah.
now after all this COVID crap.
Yep, I agree.
Awesome. I love that. Green and red on the calendar. All right. One book that you have read that you'd recommend, or one that you're reading right now.
Okay. This is the hardest question because I do love to read. And since
Yeah.
I just said green zone, I'm going to give one. Can I give 3 really quickly, Jim? Is that fair?
Okay, fine. You're so independent.
I'm just a guest. Yeah, I'm independent. I'll do whatever I want.
You're the guest, man. You can do whatever
Well,
you want.
know what? Because I just mentioned the green zone, and what hit me is I listened to a book that I surprisingly just love. I mean, not surprisingly, but Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah, I wanted to read that. Okay,
Fantastic.
It was good. Really?
It was, first of all, it was highly entertaining. To have an actor read a book is great because he's really good. But the whole point of Greenlight is different areas where he said green light. I hope I said that like him. But it's like, here's an area I got to jump on, and it was very powerful.
All right.
Yeah, he tells stories on that. It's really good stuff. But, the other two, these are things we recommend all the time in our training. So number one is The One Thing by Gary Keller. One of the most powerful books I've read. Talk about simplify and focus, the one thing. And then the other one is, my favorite one is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. And it's a fantastic book. It's all about spending time thinking about critical areas of your business. And my favorite quote in that book is the very beginning. He says, and this guy's I think he's a Georgia guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's Texas. He's somewhere in the South. And my voice is kind of gone today, but he's like, he always asks, or his quote was, what do you say? Run in the wrong direction enthusiastically is stupid. And that's, and so at the end of each chapter, he gives you all these things to think about. And he says, now go think. You'll thank me later. That's the end of every chapter. So anyway, there you go, audience.
That's awesome. I love it. Oh my gosh. My day will never be the same after having all those. All right. Favorite sales win story, whether it was yours or somebody else's.
All right.
Favorite story about winning in sales.
I'm going to share 2 from clients I work with, because now, like, I guess any coach, I'd rather talk about people I help win versus my wins in particular, right?
Okay, fair.
But 2 jump out, and I'll be brief on both of these, Jim. But number one, an agency on the East Coast we work with got really intentional on a concept called future ideal clients, AKA prospects that you really want to write. Okay. I mean, when we take this a little deeper and provide some plans and summaries and all this, and why I love this story is that we have some of our agencies that create these big boards or top 100 boards or whatever it is, right? These are going to be future ideal clients of our agency. Yeah. And it becomes this kind of team effort, and there's some accountability you can put behind it, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. But this agency, what I loved about it is that they didn't wait to have all this cool stuff or technology. You have some that do it on a big screen and all that. They used a cork board and 3x5 index cards. And they had their producers, start and they identified a top 100 clients they wanted for that, for the next year or whatever. And then they had these, we use actually these little stars, like when you're in kindergarten and you week 1, you got a star. So we had a 4-step process of these stars. And just on this board, they wrote $751,000 in new business revenue, not premium revenue.
Whoa.
Yeah. And why, first of all, it's just fun because they did it. And number 2 is you realize that things don't have to be complicated to work. You just have to actually do them.
Wait, let me make sure I understand. They actually wrote that much based on what was on the board?
Yeah. Because the board, 751,000 in revenue based on what they had on that board.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a
cool,
powerful exercise that I would like to do. Maybe with you.
We can talk about it. Yeah. I tell you what, when things become visual
Yeah.
and consistently communicated, somehow in the universe, things begin to happen.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's probably my favorite. And then another agency, this is a pretty large agency, just bought into the power of a concept, Jim, we believe called opening new files.
Hmm.
That we've got to start conversations because insurance buyers, for the most part, and I'm sure you've seen this, they think most insurance people are all pretty much the same,
Yeah.
right? And so they really understood and bought in the concept of how do we begin to ask these really compelling questions, thoughtful questions, and prepare at a really high level to open new files and really be different. And we don't teach, and we're not anti this, we don't teach broker, agent, or record letters. That isn't what we teach. But
Yeah.
I do believe that an AOR or BOR is the outcome it's a natural outcome of a great process, right? If done the
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah.
And this agency had, here's another big stat. They wrote over 1 million in that year of just BORs.
Gee, just
Eh,
BORs.
Just BORs. And that was, of course, they wrote. Now, again, this is a large, to give you a perspective, it's a 25 million revenue agency. But
Yeah.
still, just in BORs, it was pretty incredible. So those are
Yeah.
two big wins I've got to brag about because these clients are awesome.
Heck yeah, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it. All right. Daily or weekly habits that have led to your success or the success of your clients.
I'm sure I'm not the first and I won't be the last if you ask this question to other people. But absolutely, it's the morning routine. And well, let me say
Brushing
two
your
things.
teeth. That's pretty
What's
big,
that?
man. I said brushing your teeth. That's pretty big.
Brushing your
Yeah.
teeth, waking up, taking a shower. Um, I'll give you like an example. And everybody's got their own. "Oh, what's your morning routine? What's your morning routine? What's your
Yeah.
morning routine?"
Yeah.
But two things that really stood out back in my mid 20s. I mentioned Jim Rohn.
Mhm.
And Jim's got so many great quotes, but he said this, you work hard on your job, you make a living, you work hard on yourself, you make a fortune.
Mm.
And I believe in that. And so
Yeah.
somewhere indirectly, unknowingly, in probably my mid 20s, I began to invest in myself to learn it different ways. Right.
Mhm.
And part of that became a morning routine I didn't even know existed, but then it got more formalized. And so
Yeah.
for me, like there's three components of mine. Everyone's got to find what's right for them. But number one for me, I believe I try to be a spiritual man and father.
Mm. Mhm.
So for me, it's just getting up and just listening and reflecting
Yeah.
in my morning and prayer.
Yeah.
And then I move my body every single day. I got to exercise.
Yeah.
And then I learn something and apply something. And so to me, if I can do those three things before anybody wakes up or before things, and by the way, it doesn't always work out that way, right? Sometimes people wake up in my house. But if I can be pretty consistent, it's like anything. It's like this 1% compound. Like you don't notice it. Like
Yeah.
you go through even like months and you're like, why am I doing this? Or should I do this? It'd be easier to sleep in. But then all of a sudden, at some point, you look back and you're like, wow, I really have grown. Like I didn't even realize that. So
Yeah.
that for me has been absolutely the most important thing I've ever done.
I love that. And I kind of made a face there a second ago for those who are not watching this, but listening to this podcast, because I literally in the last month have started doing the second two. And I keep telling myself I'm going to do the first one, which is starting with spirituality. And I
Yeah.
love that you said just listening, being still, thinking, meditating. Like I'm a Catholic, and I actually
Mhm.
wanted to do the consecration to Saint Joseph, which a lot of people are doing this year.
Yep.
You're nodding your head like you know that.
Well, I do. We can have a side
Yeah.
conversation after, but I know where you're coming from. Yeah.
No, but that's like the one thing that I feel like is missing for me. But I'm glad to know that the other two are working because I started doing just like some push-ups. My son challenged me to put in some planks in there. He's like, dude, dad, you need to work on the other part first.
Right.
But then reading, and the goal was to read like 10 pages a day. So do 5 in the morning, 5 at night.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad to know that like that is something that we're
Well, I would
firing
just
on
say
now.
this too, because I think we're alike in many ways in that
Yeah.
area, right?
Yeah.
The listening spiritual part is by far the hardest part for me
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's
Me
just
too.
sitting still.
Yeah.
And I've even thought about trying to move it, but I thought, okay, what's really first?
Yeah.
And it needs to be first for me,
Yeah.
and that's what I've learned. But to have my brain slow down and just listen and not think about, yeah, but I could be working on that. Like I know I have that at 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
or I'd really like to do that. Working out has become really easy for me. It's not for everybody. It's just taken a long time.
Yeah.
Reading books and learning, I love it, but
Yeah.
sitting still it's hard.
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah. Especially for our personality type, where it's
Oh,
just like constantly moving around
yeah,
and like
yeah,
thinking and having all these
yeah,
ideas.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My leadership team's job at work is to basically like filter my ideas for the company so that I don't try to implement everything. So they're like, Jim, your job is to have 20 ideas a day, but not all of them are going to be good. Yeah,
There's a
you're right.
tool I can share that we got somewhere that might help you with that if you ever want
Yeah.
to learn it.
Okay. Love it. Love it. And one final piece of advice for our audience based on what we talked here today about.
You know, I think of what we've talked about, and there are a lot of things that you could share. I hate to pick on my oldest brother, but I'm going to pick on him just for a second to share this
Make sure
story
he
because I
tunes
think,
into this.
yeah, I'm sure he's going to be listening. And by the way, I have told him that I've told this story from stage in different places or in trainings or whatever it may be. But um, and you'll get why I'm sharing this as I tell the story. It's been several years ago now. I was at my oldest daughter, who's now a senior in high school, and his youngest daughter, who is a sophomore in college. So they're pretty close in age, even though he's older than me, quite a bit older than me as an older brother.
Yeah.
Um, so we were at a swim meet. This has been again a few years ago, and it was like the last week of June, like June 30th, June 29th. I mean, it was the end
Yeah.
of June to give you perspective. And we're sitting there around the pool, and my brother comes out, and I don't think anything of it until he mentioned it. But he comes out and he's got like nachos and a Coke and a hot dog or something, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm hey, good, whatever. And he looks at me, Jim, and he says, "Hey, Brent, do you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm not going to be eating this stuff much longer. I'm going to be getting in shape. I'm going to be doing different stuff or whatever." He started giving me kind of what his plan was or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, great." I said, "Well, when are you officially getting started?" He said, "Well, after the holiday." Now, if it's June 30th, Jim, what holiday would you think of?
July 4th coming up.
Yeah, that's what I said. So after the 4th, that's great. And he goes, "Oh, no, 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 no. The summer is crazy. I'm going to start Labor Day." So, so your audience is like, why do I care? And here's the reason why I'm sharing this, right? Let me ask, do you think my brother started his fitness nutrition program after Labor Day? No, of
No, he
course
forgot
not,
all
right?
about it.
So something I heard, and this does come from John Maxwell team, or from him directly, or someone on the team. It was the law of diminishing intent.
Mm,
And this is one of the most powerful things that I try to keep in my mind. And when I talk to clients many times, the law of diminishing intent says this: the longer you wait to do something you know you should do, the less likely it is that you'll ever actually do it.
oh man. Yeah. That's so
And
true.
and so, you got to filter through stuff, but I would ask anybody, like, if something's important enough to start next week, why is it not important enough to start today? Because it'll never be convenient,
Yeah.
but it'll always be worth it.
Yeah. That's brilliant,
So,
man. I love it. I love it. I do have one bonus question that you weren't aware of.
uh-oh,
It's not going to be hard. Well, maybe it will be. I don't know.
I'm sweating.
If I said to you, Brent, you have to choose between soup and marshmallows, what would you rather have right now?
That is the most obscure question I've
I'm
ever been
dead
asked,
serious.
which makes me love it. And I have an answer for me. It's soup.
I figured you'd say that, especially after all the dietary conversations we've had.
No, I love sweets. I just don't like marshmallows.
Yeah, yeah. I
That's
can
me.
understand that. What's your favorite kind of soup?
If I had to pick my favorite, it'd be French onion
French onion. Nice.
with a lot of cheese. Like, so I spent about 5 years in Wisconsin, and the good kind is you get the local tavern, and there's so much cheese on top of the French onion and bread in there that when you pull the spoon up, they give you scissors to clip the cheese because
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
That's dedication right there.
that's good soup.
I'll get your address offline. We're gonna send you a package of soup from Spoonful of Comfort. I'm not sure if you've ever had it before, but it's
Oh,
the best soup in the world. And yeah,
awesome.
just as a thank you for being a guest.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Brent, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
The easiest place to just go to our company website because there's stuff on us and me, and it's more than me, it's our team. So if you go to sitkins.com, sitkins.com. I will give one caveat, Jim. I don't know when this podcast is being released.
Probably December-ish. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then it'll be out by then. So Roger and I have co-authored a book that'll be coming out probably any time here. We're getting very close. We're at the very, very end, the final edits, and it'll be ready to go probably right at Thanksgiving or shortly after, called Best Version Possible.
Oh,
so you like that.
Nice.
So if you go to bestversionpossible.com, when this comes out, you'll be able to see there and opportunities to get yourself a book on how to be your best version possible.
I love it, man. Awesome. I'm glad you thought of that, especially since we got a little time on when this is going to get released.
I need a buffer there.
I know, right?
I'm overly optimistic sometimes.
Dude, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. I appreciate all that you've been able to give our audience. And I encourage everybody out there to grow big or go home. Take care, guys.